Eltrayan, that's what I thought. Okay. Hello and welcome to the Evolutionary. My name is David Knox and I am still your host. Today we have with us a very, very special guest from Romania. Her name is Cristiana Eltrayan, and her and I have been associated with each other through the Resonance Science Foundation and the Resonance Academy, which some of you may recognize as the organization that Nassim Haramein started. And we were together last year in July when we met in Santa Cruz for that wonderful event. And Christiana, you got to give a talk in what they called the Delegate Talks, which is kind of a TED Talk style format where they asked 6 delegates, and I actually applied to do this. I tell a story about this in one of my other podcasts where I had asked I'd asked the universe to allow me to give this talk, and I went through the motions to apply for it and do all that stuff. And then later on, I was so grateful that I did not get chosen because I wasn't ready yet. But you and I were on the same call when we did I guess it was an audition kind of, right? And they did choose you, and it was a fantastic talk, and that's one of the topics that we'll talk about today, which was free energy, aka breatharianism. So in getting ready to talk to you live today, I did a little bit of research, and man, there's a lot to talk about. You've you've got a lot going on. So first of all, Christiana, thank you so much for being on the show today. And I wanted to start by asking you what you're excited about today. What's on your mind today?
Thank you so much for inviting me and for this beautiful presentation. I had a very relaxing day. As I was saying, it's my first day of rest after many classes that I've had during the past 2 months and workshops and webinars and everything online. On my mind today is the balance between masculine and feminine. Actually, that's what I'm working on with my last class that has been on Friday, which is Prana, Intimacy, and Kundalini. And I'm preparing to launch the next one, which is the third in this series of 2 months. And so today I've studied a lot and looked a lot at the balance of masculine, feminine relationships and sexuality.
Well, that's a very juicy topic, and one that I think applies obviously not only to intimate relationships, but to the balance in our society globally, right? As we try to bring, there's a lot of talk now to try to bring it back towards balance with the masculine and feminine, because quite obviously we're way out of balance currently. Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly why I felt called to focus more on it, especially in this time, because there's the masculine energy of society that is imposing or creating certain rules and trying to still control things in a certain way, which is currently happening all over the globe. And then there's the feminine energy, which is going deep and revealing, unveiling, certain realities, certain truths, certain new ways of functioning, certain flows that are in this world that are possible to access, including free energy, actually, and new ways of accessing health, new ways of accessing immunity, new ways of accessing communication, transparency, getting together, compassion. All this is the new feminine energy emerging, arising on the planet. So when I talk about intimacy and prana, I really talk about much more than the physical intimacy that everybody must have thought about. I talk about really a profound intimacy of the souls and transparency and communication to a larger scale, as you were saying, global scale, and really being intimate and transparent to each other, all of us, to a point where there's no lies or hidden agendas on the planet. And that would be the ultimate balance of masculine and feminine, I believe.
Yeah. And so, in the organization where we met in Resonance Academy, of course, they talk a lot about the nature of the universe being holographic and fractal, and that the same information that makes up everyone is available everywhere, and the same equation and the pattern that creates the universe creates everything within it, including us. So that one of the ideas that runs throughout the evolutionary, and it sounds like it's something that you're addressing right here, is the idea that if you want to make a change on the larger scale, you make change on the granular scale, right? And so when you address the balance of masculine and feminine at the level of the relationship, that's the grassroots movement that then can grow out and blossom out into the social and communities and global scales. Yes.
Absolutely. And, people expect change and people demand change
Mm-hmm.
or are nagging about things not changing. But let's look deeper, who needs to change really?
Yeah.
Where should
Yes.
it start? I mean, should it start in the neighbor's yard or in the yard of some official or governmental organization or corporation? No, the change should start in us. That's the
Yeah.
point where
That's
the
so
change
great.
starts, and everything else that is in society is actually mirroring our core vibration. So it's an invitation to change. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. Because really, I like, if I would like my neighbor to change or my politician to change, I guess what? I don't get to change them. I only have control over one entity to change, and that's me, of course. And of course, the funny part about that is we kind of have control over ourselves. I mean, that's hard enough getting control over this, much less trying to control someone else. Like, if we could get this together, me, then we'd be ahead of the game, and we'd actually then be able to make some changes in the world, but not until we get control of this, right? Or get this to reflect what we would like to see in the world.
I would rephrase, if I'm permitted, I would change the word control with the word harmony, which is way beyond,
Yeah.
controlling is still a place of trying to put things into a natural, unnatural rhythm, whereas harmonizing, which is the word I would use, is really getting in balance and in the flow with the harmony of all that is, with the harmony of the universe. So when we get in ourselves in harmony with that, do you hear me well?
I can hear you. It's a little fuzzy, but I still have you. I can understand you.
Okay. I want to make sure that you're hearing me because I have a message here. Anyway, so when we get harmony at all levels, is it better now?
Yes.
Okay, when we get harmony at all levels within ourselves, it's much, much, much easier to then impact, it's not control, but it's impact through resonance on all that is around us, including the neighbor. I mean, I've had quite some neighbors around me changing really rapidly since I arrived and without me trying. And that's one of the keys, to impact things around you, to get in balance, to be in harmony. Yeah, that's the word.
I, I love that, and it really resonates with the Hawaiian practice of Ho'oponopono. You're
Mm,
probably familiar with it, right? Where
mm,
and if I want to heal something in the world, I turn inward and I heal that in me, which has allowed that other expression outwardly to exist in the world.
mm.
Yes.
Yes, yes, and I know to some it sounds very holistic or really woo-woo, but really think, for example, of your children, if you have any, or your relatives. There's a certain pattern in the family that is created by the strongest in the family. So everybody takes up on him, takes after him. I think that's the correct expression, and they start follow or do the same things, and that's just a little entity. The family is just a little uh, organization, so to speak. But what if you were strong enough in your emanation to impact a larger family, and like one or two people are impacting the whole resonance family that we've met in. And there was a family there at least 250 people, and globally there's a few thousands of people that are impacted by one. imagine that power of impact that anyone could have, upon the ones around us. And it's not a form of control. They naturally follow the highest or the best, the strongest vibration. And that's fact.
Yeah, I love that because it resonates with the idea of, so when we talk about how am I going to change the world by changing me, a lot of people like to think just, if we need to consider the collective consciousness as the thing that we're trying to change, and there's 7.8 billion people in the world, then that means that if it's a democracy, if I get a vote, if I get one vote, then we need 3.9 billion people plus one in order to get to 51% to raise the conscious. But it's not like that. It's more like, and actually I heard Nassim say this at a fireside chat, that it's about energy in the system. And so if each of us can become an amazing conduit, excuse me, for bringing more energy into that system and influencing more and more of our community to raise up their consciousness, their frequency.
Hmm. Yeah, so it ultimately boils down to the way we harness energy. As you were saying, it boils down to the way we let the energy flow through our bodies and through our systems, and we emanate it out into the world. That's what it all is about. And people would ask themselves, how do I feel this flow? I'm not feeling anything. How is this flow presenting itself? What do you mean? I don't feel it. I don't even know if energy exists. People say that sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very easy. It's very easy to know if the energy is flowing through your body. you know First of all, if you have any body pain or body stiffness, that's the place where energy is not flowing. So you can know where it is not flowing before knowing if it's flowing. You can look at your body, scan through your body. If there's any area that is resisting, either through stiffness or pain or or numbness or of some sort, that's the area where the energy is not flowing. The other thing where you don't feel much, it's probably flowing to some degree. Otherwise, you would have some discomfort in that area too. The other way where you can actually feel the flow that we're talking about, if you rub your palms together, you know for a while, maybe focusing on your heart, and then you set them apart slowly, and you could actually feel some tingle or some warmth or some sensation in the center of your palms, both your palms or just one, it could be. But that's the energy flowing between your palms, and that's how you feel that yes, energy does exist. And yes, it sometimes flows between two things, like the palms of your hand, or between, for example, the center of the universe and your body and the center of the earth, which is the best flow you can get. You can be a transceiver of energy, and that leads to pranic nourishment and how it's possible.
Yeah, and I do want to get into that soon. Let's back up a little bit and talk about your, I guess, core business, or what it is that what's the primary activity that you're engaging in right now. What do you do?
Where do you wish me to start?
Yeah, I looked on your website and there's a lot. So
Yeah, I am a multi-dimensional, multifaceted um, system of functioning. But I wouldn't call it a business because I've lost the ability of being a businesswoman 10 years ago. I didn't lose it. I just don't do business at all. I go with the flow in everything, and my life has taken me from being a businesswoman. Really, I was top manager, and then I owned my own company of event organizing for quite a while until I was 27. And then for 10 years, I became this writer, public speaker, um, author of 6 books already. 5 of them are already published. and holistic healer, holistic therapist. In my therapy, I work on areas as career, relationships, sexuality, spirituality, and life purpose. These are my core domains where I have my clients, and nourishment, nutrition as well, which is included in all of them because your fuel is actually influencing all the areas of your life. The nutrition, the diet that you have, so that's included in all of them. So this is what my therapy is doing. But apart from these three things, public speaking and book writing and therapy, I also do some other stuff. I've been orchestrating 5 Pranic festivals, which is gatherings of people that are nourished by energy without the need of taking physical food. During the past 4 years, 4 of them have been in Romania and one in India, and we're preparing some new ones in other countries. I've been orchestrating some 14 ecological and um, how do you call that, where you give food to people, campaigns of benefactories, campaigns for homeless people, for homeless children, and for people that are in need, over the past 10 years. So 14 editions of a campaign that is called It's Better with Love. I've been orchestrating a program in schools for children to become more aware, of their diet, of their energy systems, of the way they are playing, less tablets, more going outside. It's been a volunteer program, and I've worked with children as a volunteer in many, many ways during the past 10 years. So that's in parallel with my main activity. And I also work with sacred sites and energy portals, energy vortexes, like the pyramids in Egypt, or the sites in various places of the globe, like Mount Shasta and so on.
Okay. Well, that wasn't much. So
No, it's just,
just
a
a
piece
little
of
bit.
cake. I'm having
Sure.
fun.
uh, I stand in absolute amazement and awe of people like you, and I talk to them fairly often, who are engaged in so many activities and ostensibly doing well at all of them, because in my life I've had to take a tack where I cut down all of the activities I was doing so that I could focus on one thing at a time, because that's what was working for me. And so I'm slowly starting to blossom out into being able to do more things at once. But it's just amazing the number of things that you have been involved in, and all in this spiritual realm and altruistic realm and holistic health and healing. And I think it's fantastic. While we're, being you mentioned it, I want to talk about, hold on just a sec. What was the last thing that you mentioned?
I talked about the children, and working with children. I actually work with children, in camps and doing meditation and mindfulness programs for them. Also, the last thing I did with children as a volunteer was this Sunday, a free webinar, and it's a series of webinars that I'm developing of intuitive art, healing through drawing and painting, because I'm also an artist. I paint and draw stuff, and I said, while I'm having fun with it, I should, also bring children in and help them develop their intuition, because it's so cool to just paint from the heart and not try to do things from your mind. So that's another thing.
Yeah, so I think that that's probably some of the most important work that we can do, is to teach the children at an early age, because most of us had to unlearn what we learned. We grew up in a regular societal upbringing, and we were given this worldview, and we were taught to take our intuition and ignore it, and push it down and let it die, and just use reason. And one of the shifts that we're undergoing now, I think, is as a society, we're going to start learning to, and a lot of people do this already, cultivate our children's intuition. Like if you were, for instance, if you had an imaginary friend as a child, is what we call it in the West. Like a lot of children have spirits or someone that they're talking to, and their parents say, oh, you know, that's just your imagination, stop doing that. What if, I mean, if my child came to me and said that they had an imaginary friend, the first question would be, well, what's their name? What are they doing? Where are they from? What do they have to tell you? What do they talk about? Like, let's really develop that connection with the unseen, and then develop that connection with your own intuition, so that you learn from the very early age to pay attention to that and let it come through, versus having to, you know, come back to it in our 20s or 30s or 40s later and try to let it reemerge. So I think it's super important work.
And yeah, it helps me that in parallel with the intuitive painting and drawing, I help them develop some very important skills. You know, like when you don't know what to do next on your paper, just focus back into your heart and breathe and let it come to you. And that, if I repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, it will insert into their other areas of their lives when they don't know what to do, you know?
Yeah.
When they don't
Yeah.
know an answer, when they don't know a choice in their lives, when they don't know, when they feel lost. And I tell them, if you get bored, you know, if you finished your paper and you get bored, and if I'm not yet paying attention that you finished, center back in your heart, start breathing, look at what's there, and maybe start drawing another. So the tools to navigate through life in situations where they normally contract or become agitated or become anxious, we learn how to manage them through this breath work and through this focusing on the heart. We don't call it meditation, even though most of them are coming from holistic families, but we call them exercises of focus, exercises of relaxation, exercises of, creativity. And that's gonna, I feel and I know that that's gonna then echo through their lives in other situations where they have to make choices or um, get back in focus, get back in balance, get back to their calm state, you know, cast away their boredom, all this stuff, you know. So instead of taking drugs when you're bored, start breathing, you know. It's much more easy. You can get high on your breath. You
Yeah.
can get high on prana, you know, that's so easy, you know, prana is the ultimate high. I mean, to give them these pillars of functioning into the world so that they can stay on track, I feel it's very, very necessary, and not so many are telling them that.
Yeah, that's vital to give them the vocabulary and the tools to use that they can then apply to whatever comes up in their lives.
Mhm.
Let's let's talk about. I have a question. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but who comes to you? What is the makeup of your audience and your following and your students? What does that look like?
Well, lately, during the past few years, I felt so honored by one thing. I was just sharing with a client the other night, you know, she was someone from Oroville having 30 years of meditation and practice as a therapist. So,
Where is
you know,
Oroville?
living in a very holistic city in India, and she came to me. And that's most of the people that come to me lately. And she was 3 weeks already on juice and water, no food. So that's the kind of people lately that I'm working with. I am so humbled and honored. They have so much more experience on earth than I have, you know, at least from this lifetime. I am ancient in lifetimes, but I'm only 37 here. And I'm working with people that are so diligent on their spiritual path. And they practiced and practiced for mm, ages, and they maybe need just a bit of a touch, you know, a bit of fine tuning here and there to some very important aspects, you know, that are keeping them from taking the next step in their evolution. So that's one category in my audience, in my either in classes or my clients in therapies. They're all from this niche. And then I have I call them this, the empaths and the ones that are, you know, highly sensitives, highly gifted people that sometimes don't know that they're gifted. You know, they're either from a business, most of them are in IT, you know, or businesses that are shutting down. They're intuitive, but
Mm-hmm.
something in deep in their hearts, you know, or in business sectors of some sort, but something deep in their hearts is calling them to something greater. And maybe they did a meditation 10 years ago, or they had a powerful aha moment with some, you know, guru, or some workshop, or some insight, or some whatever they took, and they had that memory imprinted in them that there's something more. And then they got back to their normal business life or IT or whatever, but they're trying to rise up from them there and take the next step. So that's the other level that I'm working with. And you know, I'm participating in many gatherings, helping with creating new financial system, creating new types of economic systems, new types of social media systems that have to do with these type of people. Not necessarily we do directly therapy, but sometimes they call me in to hold a workshop on health and mind balance, or diet and mind balance, or focus, how to stay more focused, how to stay calmer. So I do a workshop with them, and behind the scenes, there's some light spread over there. And one or two or many then come back and say, you know, I would really need to work with you in a therapy, or I would really want to do a deeper class with you and go further, you know. But they just call me for one small thing in their gatherings, you know. There's some corporate meeting or something, and you know, Christiana, talk a little bit about health, you know. And I start going in my own stuff. And then from there they realize, oh, there's so many things that are so simple, that, you know, mindfulness techniques and stuff that we can do, you know, or with our diet, to make us more productive, to make us more efficient, to make us less anxious and less disconnected from our bodies, that are, you know, crucial nowadays to get back in balance, because there's so much imbalance in society, and we need that. So there's these two apparently um, far away from each other categories, you know, either deeply spiritual people that have had ages on their path and need a little nudge, and or these who have not apparently had any spiritual practice, but there's something so deep and luminous in them that they feel called to talk to me for some reason. They don't know why. They just call me in to their gatherings, you know. They say something like, oh, you mean, you know, many people, just, you know, maybe present some workshop to us or something like that. And from there something outstanding develops, you know. Like I had collaborations with and visits in the Toastmasters, which is a group of um,
Mm-hmm.
people that learn public speaking, you know, but they're all from business and IT mostly. Or I had collaborations with a group in India of IT people who are mainly from Mullners, you know, a company that does all sorts of coding and stuff. And I just joined them because it's cool to bring light to areas where, you know, people have no idea that there's another way of functioning. And when they see it, they say, oh, but it's so easy, I could do this. And they start doing it, and then their life changes completely. So yeah.
Life changes completely from just a little thing. So I want to talk a little bit. Let's shift gears and talk about you specifically and your path to get here. It sounds like you used to be a kind of a very successful person working in the business world, working in the capitalist system, and at some point you obviously shifted out a decade or so ago. Uh, what did that look like? Were you always kind of this really highly woo person that kind of strayed off into business, or what was your awakening and the thing that got you on this path and moving forward?
Um, I'm going to plug in my computer. I woke up like this in this world. You know, I was telling kids that we're energy. I was looking for and researching about numerology, about past lives, about meditation with crystals when I was a kid and adolescent. I got to be vegetarian, you know, at a young age. Around 17, I had an intuition. There was nobody talking about vegetarianism in Romania. We were just soon out of communism. Imagine, we barely got into capitalism at that time. And I had this intuition that, you know, dead animals couldn't be my nourishment. It could not be something that helps me function. So I stopped eating them and stuff like this. So I had these memories, I would call them, recalling who I am from my early childhood. And I did not like normal, dull conversation with kids. I wasn't able to make many friends because I like to talk about weird stuff. And, you know, I had friends that were much older. I mean, I was 13 and my friends were 19 or so. I was reading their philosophy books that they had in their classes. I was reading stuff, you know, for adults, you know, in terms of trying to find God through philosophy, through books and knowledge at that time, and also meditating in a crystal when I would go to sleep. That was my practice. And I loved to discover things, to learn new things, especially things that weren't quite ordinary. That until I was 19. Then I started to pursue business success, which was something I learned from, you know, family, and I wanted to be more independent financially and so on. So I started in parallel with my university years. From my first year of study in university, I started to get a full-time job. So I became very, very busy, you know, being full-time in studies and full-time in my job and juggling between the two of them. I forgot everything else, like completely. I would barely keep my eyes open during the day. I was working. I got to work 16 hours a day at some point, and through a whole year or more. And that threw me way out of balance, like way far from what I was in my adolescence. You know, I was becoming very agitated, quite angry, quite unable to focus. I was having trouble, you know, with with my body as well. You know, it was going out of balance, and at some point it really showed me that I should stop. You know, my body showed me that I should stop, and because I didn't find any answer in the medical assistance that I was getting, I turned back to holistic answers, to holistic practices. I had to, you know, I had to start meditate again. You know, when I was 28, it was imperative that I calmed my mind, you know, to be able to see things clearly. It was imperative that I start energy healing because nothing else was an answer for me. And I started to practice daily. So from 27 years of age until now that I'm 37, I had all of my days at least one or two meditations daily, which was crucial for my evolution. I started to see reality differently. I started to look at my life and notice what was off in it, you know, and started to drop off the things that were off, you know, naturally. Over a period of about 5 years into that, I dropped off everything, you know, since 2009 to 2013 or 14. I dropped off completely my whole life. From scratch, I started something new with zero, preparation and zero, how to say, buffer economy, savings or whatever, and
Yes.
with zero knowledge of how this works, to be able to function and support myself, because I was by myself. I started it. I jumped into it, I could say. I went into a new city, into a new rented apartment. I left my own apartment and all that from scratch. But learning more and more, learning to get back in balance. That was my aim. I never thought I would be a writer or a public speaker on these topics. I never thought I would do healings with other people. I just wanted myself to be in balance. That was my only quest. So, but when people started to invite me to hold conferences and started to invite me to do healings, at first, I was really shy in doing it, and I said, no, I still have to work. Give me 3 other years or so. But I took it on, and it seemed that it is my path. I can't get, that's what I'm meant to do in this world at this moment.
Hmm. That's amazing. That's a very fast turnaround. And speaking of fast turnarounds, you have already written and published 5 books. You have a 6th one that is not published yet. When did you start writing? How did you write so fast? And also, I guess my last question is, of your books, maybe you could just mention each of them. What one would be the one that you would suggest people start with, the one that you're most excited about?
I'm excited about all of them because each of them presents a reality that I believe it's important for people to take on. I've started to write just because I was having conversations with people, uh, either in my family or around me, that weren't able. I started to write out of a need of self expression, first of all, and out of a need of expressing certain things that I couldn't tell directly to the people around me because they weren't prepared to hear. So if somebody around me would have an issue and I couldn't tell completely what I saw and perceived intuitively because they were only ready to take 1/3 of it, for example, I would write an article on that topic, or I would write something on that topic that gave all the practices, the techniques, or the insights that I would feel to write, and I would write them and post it on some blog or either in my notebooks and so on, never thinking that this was meant to be a book. I'm talking now about my first book, and first and second and third, basically all. Actually, that's how it happened with all of them. If I look at it, it's seriously how it happened. So it piled up in a while, and then I would get the intuition in one meditation and make it a book. And I put it together, edited through, but not much. I don't like to edit much. I don't like to go back and forth into reading. As you know, I haven't read the questions and so on. I just flow into it, like whatever is meant to be. And then I published one. The first one was about a very deep spiritual experience that I had in 10 days of Darkroom, which is 10 days of sitting in no light with no food and just constant meditation and spiritual practice. This is something I do for fun every once in a while.
Sounds fun.
Yes, it's having fun with yourself. The only way out is in. And after these 10 days, I felt to write about it, because there were some insights and there were many people wanting to go through similar trainings and they were all asking similar questions. So I said, why don't I write something and publish it and they could all read it? And that's how I transmit this information easier, and I wrote it. And it's called Darkroom Retreat, a Lightful Mystical Experience. It's my first published book, not very thick. I do them thin so they are fast to read. And I've shared about my experiences, my visions, my insights, the multidimensional experiences that I've had, how I saw people and life after I got out of there, this basic stuff that I've experienced. Um, and so people read the first book, and after less than a year, they said to me, publish another book. That was great. Just do another. And I already had some piled up articles and stuff that was written during the last year, the year that has passed. So I compiled them together as they asked and published the second thing, which is called Get Seduced by Your Own Life. So the second book was mainly was approaching topics about how to get into a lighter diet, vegetarianism, veganism, go lighter from wherever you are. I talked about the categories of foods, the information that is contained in specific types of foods, how you actually can influence your system, and you are influencing your system every day by the food that you intake, because daily you're taking molecules and atoms that are solid matter that you chew and swallow and digest, that turns into information in your body and turns into sensations and moods in your body. And I talk about what moods develop from certain type of foods, what tendencies also develop from certain type of foods. That's the first section of the book. And then we talk about meditation and the ways of changing the mind and mind mastery, which is another important thing to do in your life. And the last part is about relationships and couple practices. So it's a holistic approach to the basic categories in our lives, foods, mind, and relationships. It's a self-help book, if you will.
Mm-hmm. What's it called?
Get seduced by your own life.
That's right. Okay.
Mm.
And so you've continued this process, and you have 5 out now.
Mm-hmm.
What is the one that you're working on now?
Mm.
The 6th one.
I'm working on 2 actually. The one that is, that I've advanced more into it, but yet I feel there's more to come, is called the Book of Love. The Book of Love is actually, there's also a Facebook page already created where excerpts of it are already published, and I'm going to publish many of them there, because it's meant to bring humanity to the frequency of love. I've been asking, why am I writing this? There are fragments that are literally coming to me in a block, and I'm meant to write them as they are, not to change any word, just as they are. And I felt that it's very connected to the Christed energy. I don't want to get too woo, but I'm very connected to the Christed energy, to the masculine energy of compassion and kindness that has been embodied on this planet in many shapes and forms, including Krishna or Jesus and so on. And it's this voice, this guidance that is coming through into words, giving insights on love and how love is and how love feels and how love functions, if you will, and
Right.
and it's rising my frequency as I write it. And I had feedback from people who read fragments of it, that it's very uplifting. So it's keeping humanity at a higher frequency as it's being written, because the power of the written word is fantastic. It's creating magic, it's creating new realities, it's bringing new paradigms. Even the process of me writing, even if nobody would read it or read anything, is already creating a frequency all across the planet. And anyone else, it's not just me that's doing that. So it's a creative act that is adding a certain melody into the frequency of the symphony of the planet. And that melody is about love.
That's so beautiful. I do talk a lot about the power of the word, right? And when you the way that we express in the world is our thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. Everything we think, feel, say, and do, and our words are so much more powerful than. Oftentimes you could make the argument that it's more powerful than our thoughts or our feelings, because we've actually taken an idea and brought it into concrescence and given it physical form. Even if it's just a spoken compression of sound, we've given it physical form on this plane. We've birthed it into some sort of life. And then when you write it down, then you've put so much creativity into that. Even if no one read it, you've still really actually created an artifact of that reality. And so, and then if people read it, then it goes out exponentially from there. So that's beautiful work that you're doing. And thank you for that. I did want to ask you if you have a hard stop at the top of the hour. Do you have to, we have 7 minutes till the top of the hour, but I want to know if you can go over.
Yes, I can.
Okay. I don't mind running long. We'll go as long as we want.
Okay.
And if it's too long, then we'll just make 2 episodes out of it.
Okay.
Okay. So listen, we didn't talk specifically about some of your other books. Are there some others that you want to talk about, or you want to move on? We've got a lot that we could chat on.
Yes, let's just finish with that, since it started flowing. You know, I feel that it could be valuable for people. So the third book was about feminine harmony. It's actually called Your Harmony Woman. I'm still in the process of publishing it in English. It's finished. I just have to edit it. It's published in Romania since 2015, but in English it's in the process. And it's offering tools and insights and, you know, actually even plant-based remedies and the superfoods and oils and all the stuff that a woman can use, you know, apart from the mindset and emotion assessment, that she can she can go back in balance with. You know, I've given the tools that I've discovered up to 2015 for women to be able to get back in balance, because feminine energy and feminine harmony is so important now on the planet. And for our dear men out there, you know, it's so important and crucial that we have healthy women on this planet, so that the men can also get back in balance. But I feel it should start from us. For some reason, I feel it's our responsibility, or so, you know, not responsibility, but it's our time to get back in balance and also help men re-establish their balance, because, you know, they're so dear to us and they're so valuable on this planet, and it's important for them to be healthy as well. But we need to be healthy for them to function harmoniously amongst us. The fourth one is about the miracles that I've experienced in my life, the miraculous, the things that are called miraculous just because science hasn't assessed them yet, you know, like invisibility, apparitions, whatever I've had going in my spiritual path, and all ascended masters visiting and giving insights, all the stuff. I've written them down, you know, for myself and for some of my clients, and then eventually it turned into a book, because I wanted to encourage people to trust and believe that actually this stuff is possible. I mean, this is for real for most of us that are, you know, opening up to higher dimensions, if you will. That's that's very, very possible, and it's something I've lived daily for quite a while. So the book on miracles, it's called Believe in Miracles. And the fifth one is called the Pranic World Book. I've been wanting to get to that because it's a huge part of my work now, you know, reporting and researching on the pranic reality, which is the ability to channel energy through our body, or prana, in a way that heals us but also nourishes us. And I've been researching on that for 10 years, practiced for the same amount of years with it. I've had times when I had no physical food for many, many, many weeks, and I know it's possible. So, and I have many colleagues and close friends that are doing it for years, you know, without the need of taking physical food. I've organized festivals and gatherings and interviews with them. And most of the insights that I've gathered up until 2018, I've put them in the first book on this topic that is called the Pranic World Book. It's going to be 3 of them at least coming up. The first one was Being Free from Hunger, and it's published already in English and in Romanian. It's coming. And there will be 2 more on the same series that are Being Free from Fear and Being Free from Concepts, also on the same page. Yeah.
Fantastic. And this is the topic of the talk that you gave at the RSF event that we went to last July.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a fascinating talk. And I think that you did a good job of making it accessible to people who haven't heard of this or don't believe that it's so, because I talk about breatharianism all the time. I know a number of them, you being one. I met a couple others through Resonance Academy. Nassim was one of them. He spent, I think, 3 to 5 years as a breatharian. And so I know that it's possible, but one of the things that you did in your talk was you showed pictures and stories from the conferences that you have arranged and attended, and we felt like we got to know some of these people who don't really eat food, and they're very healthy. One of them was a like a marathon runner,
Yeah.
and a world-class athlete. And so, you know, it's important to have that kind of data available, because as we go out and engage, I think part of our job, Cristiana, is to kind of throw a lifeline over the hill to the people who really want to kind of get out of the mainstream and get out of that very confined and managed worldview that the media and society has given them, and they're trying to break out. And you know, you can really kind of tease them out with stuff like this. They're like, what? You can live without eating and even be athletic and boom and healthy and all this stuff. And it's one of those things, and I think you did a really good job of it. So I'm really happy that you're publishing these books and doing the work that you're doing, because it's enticing, it's sexy, it gets people to go, wait a minute, there really is something more. Especially the 4th book that you mentioned about the miracles, because miracles are becoming an everyday thing, right? I mean, I've had weird experiences that are fantastic and don't, you know, make any sense from Western logic standpoint or the scientific view. I know dozens and dozens of people who've had these types of experiences personally. And so if me, little David in Portland, knows dozens and dozens of people who've had these kinds of experiences, like extrapolate that out. There's got to be millions of people who have had spiritual experiences, who have had multidimensional experiences, who have had contact with a consciousness, an intelligent entity that flows information through them, or who have, you know, had some sort of interaction with some sort of UFO or alien craft or whatever. It doesn't matter what their experience is. It's outside of the mainstream view, and if you allow it to, it opens up your worldview. And all of a sudden, our past is so much bigger and brighter and beautiful and more amazing than we can imagine, which means that our future can be the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to the imaginary friend in childhood. I mean, it's important for us to know that these experiences, for each one of you that are listening, does not mean you're crazy. You know, since the childhood, we've been taught that having an imaginary friend or seeing things is a bit off chart. You're not supposed to either talk about it or refer to it in public, because either one of the parents or someone in school would judge you for that. And it continues throughout life. And when you start having these experiences, and I know many people, I mean, I'm working with so many people that when they're starting having these experiences as adults, you know, either getting guidance or getting clear visions of things, or getting, you know, visitations either in the dreams or in their meditations or in their day-to-day life of what we call light being friends, angelics, extraterrestrials, ascended masters. There are various categories of visitors that you can have. They believe they've gone woo, and God forbid they tell other people, you know, they would be kind of, you know, and not for everyone. I mean, I talk about this with everyone now. I'm a big mouth sharing my experience. I don't care because I don't need any validation. I'm like free from that forever. But you know, if you still care about your reputation, there's some people that are really refraining from talking about this, like completely. And that's what I encourage people to do through my work, you know, like speak out and own it and be faithful that you're not crazy and you shouldn't be diagnosed with, you know, many people that are in this type of experience are actually diagnosed with um, you know, some specific psychiatric condition, you know. I don't remember the name of it now, but
Schizophrenia, perhaps. Schizophrenia, perhaps.
exactly, exactly. There's actually the book of schizophrenia, written by Jasmine, a friend of mine, who's actually referring to these people and how they're having a hard time filtering through the information that they're receiving or channeling or their vision or their auditive experience or auditive experiencing, you know, they're hearing stuff and they don't know how to refer to it, how to filter it, how to set boundaries to it. Like sometimes you need to turn it off if you're in the middle of something. And that's how they get off track and they are labeled, you know, in ways that are so painful, and then they cannot really relate to life so well, either because they are medicated or, you know, cast out from their families. There's so many things happening to the people that are empathic that shouldn't happen if this knowledge would be approached differently. Like in advanced society, this is encouraged, not banned. And also with the children, you know, that are relating to other worlds and or uh, deeper ways of perceiving this world into a more sensitive or highly sensitive way, that are medicated for not being able to focus or for not relating to the world as people expect them to. You know, they are medicating and labeled as ADHD or what's the other thing, the ADD and so on. And when they're actually deep empaths and deep telepaths that are, you know, perceiving information from so many zones, that yes, of course, they cannot focus on you sharing some dull stuff in school. That's boring to them. They are maybe tuned into some high physics from some other world or some, you know, high vibe information that could change humanity. And there you are speaking about boring life stuff that is, of course, not interesting to them. And, you know, medicating them is never gonna help society and is never gonna help them bring out what they came to bring. They are actually masters of higher planes who are coming here to help if they're giving the chance and not shut off, you know. That's an
Yeah.
important thing to look at.
Yeah. And that's a big, big shift coming in our society now, right now, is that more and more we are able to, more and more people are able to realize that that isn't a curse to be medicated out of the child, that it's an actual gift to be fostered and cultivated.
Exactly. We're slowly heading to that. I encourage all people to open up to that. I haven't written yet. I just included some of this topic in the Your Harmony Woman book because I felt it's important for women to know that their children are actually healthy and that they should be encouraged to develop their empathic capacities. But I have a friend of mine called Kay Hooger, who's also a healer, who has written a book called The Book on ADHD. And it's referring very well to this uh, quality. I don't call it illness, I call it quality, right? And there's also Doreen Virtue in her books of referring to crystal children and special children. You know, if you look them up on the internet, you'll find many details on how to treat your children harmoniously, how to help them stay in balance with changes in the diet. Like don't give them sugar and flour, it makes them, you know, very agitated. and how to add things in their diet that are helping them better cope with the world, and how to add music and sound and mindfulness exercises and breathing exercises to help them function here. Yeah, and I have clients who have brought me the idea of treating their child who has ADHD, and I said, no, come, you come to the sessions,
You need the
Mother,
treatment.
like straight away. Not that I'm judging anyone, but I know what's happening. And the mother had 5 sessions just because she wanted to go deeper. And after 4 sessions, she said, my child is perfectly fine. He's not agitated anymore. He's doing much better in school. He's no longer being aggressive to other children and so on. It is us that had to change our life completely, and it's turning upside down now, and we're trying to get a grasp on it. But we finally understood as parents that it was us that was necessary to change for our child to function harmoniously. Like, that's the message.
That's perfect. So let's shift gears a little bit. Something that you talked about a smidge. You touched on it, but I want to get into it just a little bit. Can you talk about the energy, the work that you do on the energy portals around the world? Where does that come from, and why is it important?
I love to talk about it because it's behind the scenes of it all. It's my most important work right now. So between the sessions, between the interviews, between all the stuff, I'm at least once or twice a day traveling to some portal and working with it daily at least, or a few times a week. I have no.
I'm sorry, astral traveling.
No, literally traveling, because I'm in the middle of a vortex of a ley line of so important vortices here in Romania.
Okay. Okay.
Sometimes I do a lot of astral work, of course, but I'm literally referring to traveling physically to them.
Okay.
Like today, I've been to 2 of them at least, and every day like this. That's why I'm living here, and that's big part of my life. And also when I get the occasion, I travel along the planet. Like in March, I've been to the pyramids in Egypt and the pyramids in India, and some important temples and vortexes in India, one after the other, until they closed down the airports and I couldn't go anymore. um, the planet is a living organism. Most of us already know this. The planet is also a very high energy spirit that governs the living organism that is called Terra or Gaia. It's not just a ball of dirt.
Mhm.
It's actually, a spirit that has 4 molecules and atoms in a spherical shape that is made of the same elements as our human body is made of, that is having channels uh, all the way through it, the same as we have our channels or meridians, the same as we have our circulatory system, if you will. And these channels are circulating energy, and those are called ley lines. But there's also circulating fluids like the waters and the petrol and all that stuff. It is similar to our blood, our lymph, and our inner waters that are flowing through us. So everything is interconnected. When the planet is getting out of balance, because we're doing a lot of work on it that is getting herself out of balance, when trees are cut or oil is extracted from areas where it shouldn't be, or garbage is dumped, or chemtrails is dumped in areas where it shouldn't be. I mean, in no areas should this be done. Then certain nadis or energy channels of the planet are getting blocked, certain fluids are getting depleted, and same as our physical system, when you drain too much blood or if you interrupt the lymph flow, the same is happening in the body of the planet with things getting malfunctioning, and that's reflecting directly back into our bodies. So nothing moves on this planet, no ecosystem gets destroyed, no forest gets cut, and no thing is getting extracted without this directly affecting on the spot our physical bodies. Why? Because we're directly interconnected with the elements of the planet. I don't know if people realize that. I think that I think that they believe it's a thing in years, the resources get depleted, or, when there's not going to be enough air, or the ozone layer is going to get, no, it's happening now. It's like in this now that we're having trouble. Our illnesses as humans are the result of how the body of the planet is functioning now. When something is interrupted in the circuitry of the energy or circulation channels in the planet, in the body of Gaia, it's also getting interrupted in the bodies of most humans. Check that out. And it's on the spot, it's not in the future.
Mhm.
And if you look at the general health state of the population on the planet, including these 2 past months, that says a lot of what we did to the planet. The way we can undo is many things that I've learned from direct experience. First of all, we can, of course, stop acting crazy on the planet from ecological and extraction and depleting perspectives. And that would be, a long-term project that I hope it's getting in balance. But we can also travel to the points, those of us who are meant to do this, travel to the points of very the juncture of these channels. The same way we have chakras in our energy system, our
Mhm.
planet has chakras too. There's main chakras or main chakras, at least 7 that we know of across the globe. That is the main juncture points of the ley lines and the channels of the energy of the planet. And there's secondary chakras in each country, in each area even, that can be accessed and cleaned and energized. And if you would look at the planet from above, if you go into space or into the astral realm, you would see this net, this web around it that is connecting in these specific jointure points or chakras, that is circulating energy all across the planet. The more these points are getting cleansed and enhanced and activated, I call it, the more the planetary energy is circulating better and the planet can heal, and the more people get more conscious, actually the more people get woken up. So instead of going one by one to people and telling them a story or holding conferences, and and that's also working because it's necessary for the mind to comprehend stuff, you could go into the planetary grid and set a frequency there that drips and drops into the consciousness of all people that are ready, and it's waking them up and is giving them that information, ding, instantly. And that's the easier and quicker way to do it. And it's interdimensional science. Intergalactics do that for a long time. That's how we've awoken from the dark age and all that stuff. And it's becoming more and more accessible to some of us who are here on Earth, especially if you're collaborating to light beings and getting accurate message from them. That's how the balance on the planet is starting to get back into shape.
So there's just one more way that we are bringing more energy in the system and kind of creating this resonant frequency uplift so that people, whether they are intending to or not, whether they're doing all of the hard study and desire and exhibiting that desire to raise their consciousness, they're still getting that influx of that frequency. So they're still able to pop out to the next, I would say, energy orbit. Like an electron, when it gets excited, it comes out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is just another way that we're up leveling the consciousness of the collective.
Yes, and it's the best and quickest way, but I want to go back to that little word or phrase that you said, whether they're intending or not, is very important. I want to refer to what we call free will now, or common intent. You know, they must want it to some level. It's
Hmm.
not something that is imposed upon the
Sure.
people that don't want. You know, most of them are actually having the option to leave the planet, even, and most of them did, which is obvious during these days. They also have the option to stay here for a while, not for long, and still experience oblivion, you know, or forgetfulness. But the more planet is raising frequency, which has been shown now with the last displays of the Schumann resonance having gone from the old days 7, 8 hertz, it has gone to 40, and in some days with global meditations, it has gone beyond 70, which is 10 times more than the original frequency back in the days. So with this resonance rising, it's really hard for people who don't want to or don't intend to, as you said, to stay here and be comfortable, because it's getting hard to remain on the physical, you know, on the planet and not uplift your frequency. It's just nearly impossible. It's getting painful. Most people have huge pains or illnesses in the bodies if they resist to the natural flow of evolution. And that's why um, I I do say that if they don't want to, they're not getting much of it. They can resist to it, of course, but um, but it's the natural way of the planet, is the choice of Gaia, and is the choice of most people now that have said yes and have said and have prayed. They have prayed for evolution. If you look at the last group meditation that has been done over the planet with the Unify movement, where, you know, HeartMath has participated, we have participated, and Resonance has participated, and many other organizations have joined together with Muji and with all the others on April 4 times already. If you look at that and how the Schumann resonance has responded to them, I would say, you know, many of the planet has prayed for it, and now it's just a result, you know, of these prayers and of these intentions that this is happening, and it's growing more and more.
Yeah. So you can't override someone's free will, um, but there's an influence that is being exerted, right? Because the resonance is increasing, those people who are amenable to a better way are going to find it much easier to evolve. And those people who are resistant to it are going to find it uncomfortable, because there is this influence, because there is this resonance is uh, that is powerful and can be felt. And if you are not amenable to it and you want to dig in your heels and say, no, I want to stay entrenched in fear and darkness and injustice and hatred, but that's going to be more difficult because of this resonance.
It's basically, you know, I think at the soul level, if I look now to answer from, you know, from the divine perspective, not from my own mind, I feel at the soul level, you know, which is deeper than the mind, deeper than the emotions, deeper than the fears, deeper than the programmed perspectives, you know, the programs that we have about what reality should be, deeper than all that, I think at the soul level, all the beings, and I mean all the beings that are now on the planet, at the soul level have the choice to receive that. Even the ones that apparently are operating in this harmony at a certain level, because they don't know better, it's clear, at the soul level, at a deeper level, they still want to get back into, or participate, at least participate is the word, participate to harmony. And some would ask, how is it that some are participating to harmony with violence, or some are participating to violence with to harmony with lies, or some are participating to violence with restricting people from their freedoms? And our answer is yes, but even that, to some level, is forcing you to ask the right questions and make the right steps and jump out your comfort zone and say, this isn't working, I want to evolve past this, and that's helping you. And if people could see how the seeming negativity of some members of their family, of some of their relationships, or on the global level of some organizations are really helping them to say no and set boundaries and start working with their energy and get stronger and build stamina and build better immunity, like we did in these 2 months, and so on and so forth, you would just bow and say, okay, thank you, I got it. I'm on my path now. I'm resilient. I'm going to continue. Thank you for waking me up. God bless. And that's the right attitude towards all that is apparently in this harmony.
That's a beautiful perspective to see. I've in other episodes, I refer to them as shitstorms, the things that we think we don't want, the things that we think are wrong in the world at a glance, but they actually are gifts. They're exactly what is needed for us at this time to take us to our next step on our evolutionary path.
Exactly. If somebody would have said to us in December, let's take a break for 3 months. Let's let the planet breathe. Let's let the water clear. Let's let the air, be more breathable. Let's let the ozone layer rebuild itself. Let's take a pause. Let's stay in our homes for a while and not drive our cars so much and not fly so much. Let's just take that break for the planet. Let's slow down in order for the planet to get in a more ecological balance. We would all have said, fuck no, I'm not stopping. I have business to do. I have traveling to do. Even myself, I must admit, I want to go in the world. I had a gazillion of things organizing in India for conferences and all, when I had to leave from there with the last flight back to Romania because it was all shutting down. So all of us would have said, no, that's impossible. I'm not doing that. Yet nature said, that's this joke on the Instagram. Nature said, okay, hold my beer. And it stopped us all, And it stopped us all, Was it necessary? Yes. Was it imperative? Yes. Was it urgent? Yes. Was it doable with our consent? No. So it has to happen. It had to happen. It has happened. Now we have learned how to do it. Hopefully, we'll do it from our own free will next time, so we don't have to be stopped again. I'm praying.
Yes. That's a beautiful thought, and I think that's coming. I think we'll get there quickly.
Okay.
Hey, I have a few more questions that I want to ask before we wrap up. One of them is, so there's this interesting bait and switch thing that sometimes we do when we talk about spiritual things, when we talk about how to live a better life. And what I mean is that sometimes we talk about things that are desirable to people who are in a state of lack, like abundance of wealth, abundance of love, abundance of free time, good health, right? And we talk about these things and we say, well, you can have these things and I can show you how to do it. But really, when you get into the workshop, you're going to find out that ultimately you kind of got to be a better person. And so we turn it around. We bring them in saying you can have abundance, you fix your money problems and heal your body and all that stuff. But when we really get into the nitty gritty of it, it really turns into an exercise of turning inward and working on the things within ourselves that truly need to be healed, right? And one of the things that I heard you saying in one of your talks was that was about financial abundance. And you mentioned, and I really liked it, so I want you to talk about it a little bit now. You mentioned 3 pillars of focus, determination, and health. And I hadn't heard it put that way before. So I wondered if you talk about that just a little bit.
Thanks for reminding me. As I said, I have to be reminded what I speak of because it's a constant flow. And also with abundance, it has to be a constant flow, you know?
Mhm.
And these 3 pillars that you mentioned and are about this constant flow, you know? If you're healthy, so first thing is, you know, to be a better person is not that you were bad or you were inaccurate or you weren't acceptable before, but as you heal these parts of yourself that are not letting things flow harmoniously, you're able to better function in all areas of your life. And from that standpoint, you of course receive more. And when you receive more, you feel abundant. And the more abundant you feel, the more you receive. And that's the process of getting in abundance. On the other hand, it has to be also a game of focus because you cannot have your mind rambling on all the green pastures all the time, you know, picking up of any idea and accepting it as true, you know, like the idea of a pandemic that has to keep you in a house for and in fear for 2 months. You know, you can't really linger on that for too long. Otherwise, you're gonna be functioning on that paradigm instead of picking yourself up and doing something useful for yourself and others that could help humanity. And that mind focus and mind mastery of picking the right information and soaking it in and discarding the junk, that's very important as well. And that leads to health. And what was the third thing?
Focus, determination, and health.
Determination. It's the frequency, you know, of being determined to stay on track. Some things aren't coming easy for everyone all the time. It takes practice, it takes diligence, it takes daily routines, if you will, or daily intentions. And that's the determination I'm referring to. Like, instead of getting up and going directly on Netflix or some soap opera that you're watching, you could get up and do some movement and some breath work that would get you into a different mood and would actually create or attract a different mindset. And maybe instead of the soap opera, you would choose some good information, maybe documentary or article to read that would expand your level of knowledge and get you into new possibilities and opportunities that can be attracted in your life. And from that point, maybe go into a healing process that has been revealed to you in that moment and that has changed your day. And if every day is like this, you know, you have a changed life altogether just by doing a simple shift in the way you begin your morning. How about that? You know, that's the determination that I'm referring to. For example, when I was working 10 to 16 hours a day, you know, I was getting up at 7, being in the office at 8, and coming back at 8. Uh, the earliest, you know, I'm talking about 8 a.m., 8 p.m. If somebody tells you in that rhythm, you know, you have to meditate half an hour a day, you said, shit, no, I have no time. No, everybody says that. But what
Mhm.
I did is I started to, instead of waking up at 7, I woke up at 6:30. Simple thing. You know, I was sleepy, but I would sit myself on the couch, you know, leg crossed, and do half an hour of or 20 minutes of meditation daily. What that brought to me was more energy during the day, more clarity, and the tasks that I would do in an entire day, I would do in half a day or quarter of a day, which gave me more time to search for new information or new ways of getting my life back together, and got me home earlier to be able to do the second meditation in the evening before going to bed. And that kept me being more productive, more focused, more efficient. Is it worth to get up earlier? Yes. And it helps you work less, get back home earlier, have more time for sleep so that you can wake up even earlier the next day if you want to extend your practice. That's the, determination that I'm referring to.
Yes, beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. I want to ask you about your personal evolutionary path and where you are right now. What do you, I know we don't always know what's next for us, but there is a level of intention in our evolutionary path. And something that I talk about is that most people don't apply their own intention to their evolutionary path. They just kind of wander around. And my message is that you can become a willing and active participant in the creation of your own evolutionary path. Yes, there's going to be a kind of a co-creation with the universal mind or with spirit. But what do you think is next for you on your evolutionary path? What are you choosing to focus on now?
My only focus during the past 10 years has been to become and stay a pure channel for a pure conduct, a pure vessel, that's the word, a pure vessel for light and energy to flow through. That's my only intention for now and for what we call future. The rest of it, I have no idea. I have no idea what I'll do tomorrow, except for the scheduled things that may or might not, be the way we schedule them. The rest is just complete surrender to what comes. I have no plans, as in, what they say, you should have a goal, you should have a purpose, you should know in 10 years what you are meant to do. I have no idea. I'm looking forward to it. That's my position at the moment, bring it in. But my only and constant, perseverant intention is to be a pure vessel for light to flow. The rest is just universe moving this body from left to right, from here to there, and so on.
That's so beautiful, the idea of not knowing, because let's be clear, we actually don't know anyway. Even if we have a bunch of goals, we still actually don't know what's going to happen. So if you just get rid of the goals and allow it to unfold in a magical and surprising way, it's like a big extended Christmas morning where there's so many beautiful surprises and gifts that are awaiting you, and but only you get to unfold them, unwrap them slowly over the days and the weeks and the months. So that's such a beautiful vision. Thank you for that.
And universe has already shown us, like to the core, full in our face, how futile it is to cling to plans, like try planning an event now, see how that works, or
Yeah,
try planning a meeting in another country. Or try planning something. I mean, we've planned and finally successfully accomplished this conversation, but if I had been called to go to another city to work there, I would have been sorry to decline it, even last minute. I mean, I have no plan, that's why. And I say yes to what feels resonant to me. I say yes to what feels in the flow. And, I embrace it fully. And I, as you see, hold space for it in all my, and without limits, except for the ones that I'm feeling called to set, like I feel called to now come close to the end of this interview. But Otherwise, no plan. I mean, in India, everything was planned, conferences all over the place, a new love beginning, being a board member of a big meditation organization, the Global Pyramid Society, this and that. In a whim, everything goes down the drain if you're meant to be someplace else. I humbly bow, I have no comments or questions. I know it's for the perfect harmony of the universe. That's
Yes,
why
and
I
so
do
here
it.
we are. I love that.
Mm.
So, okay, two more questions. The first one is what events do you have coming up that people might want to know about?
So there's the Pranic festival in Romania that is still, on my agenda because it's in August 15 to 19. So we could still get together. Romania has opened up now. We are circulating. We have our shops open. The restaurants are getting open soon. The
Okay.
facilities for accommodation, the hotels are going to open soon, as far as I heard. So it's moving. We're starting to move. The commerce is starting, and all that. People are still scared, but until August we have the time to wake up and snap out of it. That's why I'm maintaining the vision of that. It's being actually held for me to maintain it. I could have not do so, but it's still feeling and resonating as such. And online, I have each weekend on Sundays or every 2 weeks the webinars for children and adults, which is called Intuitive Art Webinars. You can find them on my Facebook page, where children can access for free and adults can access on an energy exchange the chance to get back or get deeper into our intuitive and creative modes and get back into our hearts from which all creation stems from. I have a new pranic process of 8 days coming in online, which is 8 days of detox on all levels: physical, with dropping the foods that are not beneficial; emotional, with learning to assess our emotions that are not so harmonious; and mental, with learning to drop the programs or the concepts or the ideas that are not beneficial for us and not creating a good life for us. So for 8 days, we meet each evening at 8 p.m. We discuss certain practices to raise our frequencies. We discuss certain topics that are of interest for the group, and then we meditate to purify, clarify, and enhance our energy channels and our chakras to be able to receive more prana. We have had great results of this program. I share it since 2013, and 3 times in these 2 months we've had it. We had people healing their virus with it. We had people going deeper into pranic nourishment, for 1 month without food. We had people having big aha moments and shifts in their lives. We had fun, and we're still going to continue that as long as we're still in our homes mostly, and online activities are still encouraged. We're going to maybe in 1 or 2 weeks start it again. And my prana and intimacy class, which is being prepared now, the 3rd edition of it, is going to be launched soon. So stay tuned, maybe on our events page, and you're going to see more of it.
That's great. You got a lot going on.
There's a lot of energy. I don't eat much, and there's not too much sleep happening. I sometimes wake up at 2 or 3 and start creating new stuff, and that's giving a lot of time for new things to come forth, and that's how it's happening.
Beautiful. What's the best way for people to engage with you?
So my name, Cristiana Eltrayan, without an H at Cristiana, just CRI and so on. Cristiana Eltrayan is the name of my Facebook, is the name of my Instagram, so you can find me there. then and you can DM and ask questions or get in touch. Then there's the website soulhealingacademy.com, soulhealingacademy.com, where my contact data, where you can contact us is, and there's the events page, so soulhealingacademy.com/events, where you find all the next best things, and lots of articles that are on the topics discussed tonight, and lots of videos on my YouTube, and there's a lot of free stuff that you can dive deeper in and get an idea of what our perspective is on this reality. So that's the best. YouTube, Facebook, website.
Yeah, good stuff. Cristiana, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been really wonderful talking to you, and it's been really good to hear about all of the amazing things that you're doing. You are a light in the world that is absolutely shining brightly, and I really appreciate you being with us and sharing today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much as well. I also almost forgot one thing that I think is important. There's a Pranic festival online ongoing that I held for 2 months now since I came back in Romania. I hold talks, live stream talks with some of the most beautiful people on the planet. Most of them are nourished by light or chi or prana without the need of taking physical food. But many of them are also very good in their mastery of harnessing energy as healers, as paradigm breakers, and so on. We've also had Adam Apollo. I'm now talking to Robert Grant. His assistant just is contacting me as we speak to schedule the next talk, which is probably going to be him, our next talk in the Pranic Festival online. So if you go on the website, soulhealingacademy.com/events, you find it there. You have free access to the live streaming. So whenever the next thing is coming, if you put your email there, you're going to receive notifications and you're going to be able to watch live with us this good informational and frequency rising event that is ongoing online for as long as I meet beautiful people. So that's another thing that I'm working on.
Excellent. And for those of you listening, I will put all of those links in the episode notes. And if you haven't heard of people like Adam Apollo and Robert Grant, you got to tune in because they're some amazing, amazing individuals, as are you, Cristiana. Thank you so much again. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.
Right back at you, David. Thank you so much for the beautiful work that you're doing and for the broad understanding that you have on all these topics. And I'm looking forward to listen to more of your podcast now.
Thank you, Cristiana.
Thank you for everything. Much love.
Yeah. Okay, we're there. Thank you. That was really wonderful.
Yeah, it's been great. I'm going to stop recording as well.